Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the European crossover webinar. And we are seeing the euro dollar just a slightly bit lower here in opening trade for the week. We've also seen indices going in pair back. Bear with me. You can see here with the NASDAQ pairing back, and also the S&P, same thing. Basic similar picture here, technically basically identical. There was no deal, which is no surprise. No deal over the weekend. Just a matter of how the market wants to go and react. We did get some economic data come across. Yeah, not showing it here, but it was Spanish PMI data for September came in at positive 0.3. Prior was a negative 0.2, so definitely an improvement there. But as I mentioned, Euro trade relatively quiet. At the top of this next hour, we will have German iPhone numbers come out. And as we come to the States, we'll have building permits at 8 a.m. Eastern and National Activity Index at 8:30 Eastern and new home sales at 10 a.m. And speaking about the week ahead, let me just go over that quickly. We have the iPhone business surveys today, which we saw that. Then we have consumer confidence on Tuesday, Australian CPI on Wednesday, and then US GDP and the ECB meeting on Thursday. And Eurozone GDP to wrap up the week. As I mentioned, there was no deal, so we're rotating lower here. Not really a whole lot to start out the week. Overall, looks like we're going to move to this 11,500, which is which is the anchored VWAP off of the lows from when they were saying no deal was coming forth. That was back in September when Trump had said no deal, that I have a deal. And then we saw rally back, and we've just kind of hung around here. So my guess is that's what we'll be going to. Take a look at news. Australian New Zealand dollars hobbled by surging global COVID cases. The Australian New Zealand dollars eased on Monday, undercut by an uptick in risk aversion ahead of the U.S. election on accelerating coronavirus globally. Um, Surging coronavirus cases in Europe and U.S. and a lack of progress towards the U.S. stimulus package have put traders in a cautious mood, analysts said. Concerns over a potentially disputed U.S. election, dim prospects of a stimulus package before the vote, pandemic containment measures in Europe also underpinned the U.S. dollar, which on Monday tacked on about a tenth percent. Australian government bond futures were slightly higher on the day, with three-year bond contract up a tick. Can last week's rise of global yields continue this week? That will depend on the headlines around the U.S. stimulus package. There's not going to be no stimulus package coming. I don't know why they keep saying this. As we head into the election, more domestic data outcomes. Besides the cautious global backdrop, policy is also facing pressure from expectations of further rate cuts and quantitative easing. Besides the cautious global backdrop, the quantitative easing would come from obviously the RBA, and we think the RBA is likely to cut interest rates at the November 3rd meeting, UBA analysts said. The dollar found some support on Monday as surging coronavirus cases in Europe and the U.S. and a lack of progress towards the U.S. stimulus package put traders in a cautious mood. Basically, repeating exactly what it just said. Combination of receding hopes for pre-election. The U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said he expected a White House response on Monday regarding the stimulus. It's always one more day. I expect one over the weekend. I expect now one on Monday. I expect one now on Tuesday. It's just the same BS. Combination of receding hopes. Yeah, okay, well, that's nothing new. It's the same thing. The week ahead holds three major central bank meetings and the final sprint in the polls in the U.S. Bank of Canada and Bank of Japan are expected to hold the fire for now, while market assumes the ECB will sound cautious on the inflation. Risk is that the ECB President Christine Lagarde strikes a dovish tone during a post-meeting conference. Analysts said they also reckon Joe Biden's victory next week, especially if the Democrats win control of the Senate, would likely herald a large U.S. Stimulus package. On the other hand, we have it very clear that from the Fed and the U.S. government to print and borrow their way out of a position, weakening the outlook for the dollar. But it's almost like the more consensus you get and the bigger the position, you will see bigger reversals. So basically, there's just a bunch of junk. Nobody's saying anything. We'll just hurry up and move on to the analysis. Basically, it's the old economist line. On one hand, but on the other hand. On one hand, well, you might get a stimulus package, but on the other hand, what if you don't get a stimulus package? On one hand, Joe Biden looks like he's going to win. The Democrats can take the Senate. But on the other hand, the polls are tightening. So, I mean, like it's just ridiculous at this point. Basically, it just means that they don't know what they're going to do, what's going to happen. So let's go and move on to the analysis. So the euro rallied 4 of the last 5 days. The pair is open for a challenge of 1965. Immediate resistance is going to be 1903 with support at 1809. So as I mentioned here, it's going to be potential move to 1965, but immediate resistance will be 1903 and support will be 1809. And we're just trading very quiet. And that's within reason, considering that equities are under pressure. Look at the cable. Basically, the dollar's just a little bit firmer, so there's nothing really happening. Cable closed the week, paring back the last two sessions. Support will be 29.88 with resistance at 31.23. And like I said, I mean, we're just quiet for the week. I mean, basically, it's no different than these stupid Reuters stories. I mean, it's like I said, they're just saying on one hand, but on the other hand, and look, all we need is just the levels, and we're starting the week out quiet. We've seen three sessions now going lower, and we're just kind of giving back these gains, and the dollar's a little bit firmer because equities are weaker. So we're going to move on to the Aussie dollar. So the Aussie stifled the downside momentum, but will need a daily close above 71.59 to get bulls going. Resistance will be 71.82 with support at 70.87. Like I said, we're just smack dab in the middle on these ranges. Onto the Kiwi. The Kiwi posted a solid week with bulls back in control. Resistance to start the week will be 67.19 with support at 66.29. Onto the dollar CAD. So the dollar CAD remains weak, closing at the lows of the week. Support comes in at 30.85. A break lower opens a challenge of 30.37. Resistance will be 31.89. Peso finished the week on the low. Support comes in at 20.70 with a daily close below, targeting 20.48. Resistance will be 20.98. And it's just a quiet start to week for FX. The dollar yen remains mired at the 452 area. The pair is open to challenge 411 with immediate support at 427 and resistance at 503. So you can see none of these figures are changing very much because we just simply haven't gone anywhere. The dollar index is vulnerable to a break to 92.17. Immediate support will be 92.45 with resistance at 93.04. And on to the cross rates. The bulls managed to risk short-term control for the prior week. Resistance will be 70.41 with support at 69.54. Now the euro pound is moving to the whims of the Brexit headlines. Resistance will be 91.34 with support at 90.20. And this was just all over the place, but you can certainly understand why. And I guess we'd flip this to a range because it's really a range right now. Just all over the place. On to euro odd. Now the euro odd shed the gains from the earlier in the week, falling below weekly support of 65.81. You can see here. Bear with me. There we go. So EURUSD shed the gains from earlier in the week as we slid below the weekly level of 65.81. Support will be 65.47 with resistance at 67.06. And this marker is really just smack in the middle. Technically, it's still bullish. So we'd have to slide back under 81. And even then, we'd only be in a range. So it's still bullish, even though we paired back pretty good. Let's go to Euro Kiwi. So the Euro Kiwi fell back to close the week. Bears will look to test support at 76.14 with resistance at 78.07. And this is in a range. Fell back right into this range. Let's go into the Aussie yen. Now the Aussie yen is attempting to base during the prior week. Was trying to do it during the prior week. Support will be 74.23 with resistance at 75.23. You can see here we're just stuck in this range here. And it's bearish. On to the guppy. So the guppy paired back to end the week after a solid close on Wednesday. We saw this solid close, and all we did was slide right back. Support to start the week will be 35.89 with resistance at 37.44. And move on to sterling odd. So sterling odd saw failure, paring back 300 pips. Support to start the week will be 82.22 with resistance at 83.55. And that's going to do it. As I mentioned, we're off to a quiet start here in FX for the week. And there's just not a whole lot happening. You can see here, and it's expected. That's why I indicated, like on the euro, I said 1965 is where the real resistance comes in, but it's 1903 that they have to scale first. And the reason I was pointing that out is because there was no deal, you would expect the equities to come under pressure, and with that, that would keep the dollar from coming apart. There'd be like an undertone bid. So that's where we're at now. Um, we do have earnings this week. Let me take a look here. On Thursday, we do have Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. That's on Thursday. Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. Today, nothing. I don't see anything of real significance. Tomorrow, we do have Microsoft and AMD. Wednesday, eBay. And as I said, Thursday, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. So, like I said, for tomorrow, we get Microsoft and AMD. Wednesday, eBay. And Thursday, once again, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. So there we go there. Looks like this 120, we're looking at the weekly chart there. Microsoft, that was on Apple. Microsoft 220 looks pretty key. Microsoft on that trend line, but 220 is key. For right now, 32.20 for the daily on Amazon. Google's still holding up pretty well. Nvidia is still strong as can be. Weekly, it is looking a little bit tired. Facebook, still pretty strong here. That's on the weekly, on the daily. And on the Tesla, nice bounce off of that trend line. Netflix. We had earnings last week, and that was a disappointment on subscriber rates, which I had posted before that, because I had noted when I saw that for a brokerage firm looking for weaker numbers. And that's where we are for right now. So not much. I mean, we'll just see how the week starts out. As obviously disappointment over no stimulus talks. Will probably have let things under pressure. But Thursday is some key figures for earnings. As I mentioned, Microsoft tomorrow, eBay on Wednesday, and Apple, Amazon, and Facebook on Thursday. And that's all we have for here. So go and get the bias chart posted. Thanks for joining us here on the European Crossover webinar.